Hello, guys. Good afternoon, and welcome to another live Costa Rican Vacations webinar. I hope you are all well. I'm your host, Adam Baker. Guys, today we have a webinar discussing everything adult only, theme related, and romantic getaways here in Costa Rica. And to discuss everything romantic here in Costa Rica during the month of February, I have Jess Luecke, one of our top senior travel consultants. Jess, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Adam? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thanks for coming back on. And Rebecca Porter, another senior travel consultant at Costa Rican Vacations. How you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, Adam. I'm good. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. I am excited to get into this with you guys to discuss everything, not just adult only related when it comes to resorts and hotels and couple related, how to get away from the kids maybe, but also really fun romantic ideas just for couples wanting to get away. Perhaps it's an anniversary. We are going to touch on the wedding theme as well, and of course honeymoons. So plenty to get into. Guys, don't forget, as usual, towards the end of our discussion, in about 45 minutes or so, we're going to have a live Q&A session as well, where Jess and Rebecca will answer any of your questions when it comes to travel to Costa Rica. So if you're planning a vacation and you have questions for the experts, get it into Jess and Rebecca today, and we'll answer you live on air. And it doesn't have to be romantic themed related. It can be anything at all. Whether the weather, you're not sure where you want to go, how big is your group, can you travel to here, there, or everywhere? Let us know, and we'll get straight back to you. My trusted colleague Wendy is working in the background to provide me with some great links. So as we have our discussion, I can send you guys some links to our website, relevant content, articles, as well as videos that you might find helpful. So please don't forget to subscribe, to follow along. If you're watching on YouTube, on our social channels, Facebook and Instagram, that way you'll always see our ads for our monthly webinars, and perhaps you want to join us as well in March. So guys, without further ado, let's get going. I'm going to start this topic up as I always do with a big open-ended question. Jess, I'll throw it over to you to get us going. What makes Costa Rica an ideal location and destination for adults only, seeking a romantic getaway?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And it's interesting. I've been living here for 8 years, and I was talking to a traveler earlier this week, and I said, or this weekend actually, and I said, it's such a small country, but there are so many hidden gems and small nooks that you can travel to. So many small boutique hotels that oftentimes focus on adults only that have, 10, 12, 15 rooms, which really just make for a great way. Even if it's only for a 4 or 5 night getaway, you don't have to do a ton of traveling. Or if it's a further away a property or a hotel, we've got the domestic flights to get you there. What would be a 5 hour drive, you can hop over there in 45 minutes. So I'd say logistically, it's a really great country, and a lot of the hotels and some accommodations really focus on that niche of small boutique adults only. So, lodging, transportation, kind of makes for the perfect mix for adults only and romantic getaways.
Yeah, it's a good point. And as you were talking there, I was thinking usually when we have this discussion or we're discussing vacation themes, adventure, you want to go to the beach or you want to go rafting, you can mix it up. Geographically, Costa Rica is amazing for different, other than skiing, you can just do about everything here, right? But when it comes to the adult only experience, having that diversity in boutique experiences, there really is something for everyone when it actually comes to hotels and lodging as well, which we don't always touch on because Costa Rica is such a great country for experiences and adventure. As you just mentioned there, we love to sell boutique hotels when we can. We know you're going to get a great personalized experience, but also thinking about the diversity of hotels in terms of their own themes, where they're located, how they cater to couples. Like you say, it's a small country, but I do think that's a great incentive for anybody looking for a romantic getaway or
And I
honeymoon.
think, I don't know if it's certain articles that are out there or Facebook pages. I think people have this idea that I would almost argue a bit that the only adults only properties are on the beach, and that's not accurate. I live just right outside of La Fortuna. We have properties that are definitely geared more towards adults here. I'd say the Cloud Forest, down in the Osa, even over on the Caribbean side. So, it doesn't have to be a beach vacation either. If you're like, hey, we want to kind of stay away from small kiddos, but and focus more on adults and smaller hotels, it doesn't have to be the beach. It can be the rainforest. You can still be adventurous. You know, if you're like, hey, you know, I don't need to just sit at a romantic hotel and have a private, you know, beach dinner. I want to go hike waterfalls and jump off of waterfalls and do zip lining. You can do all of that.
Yeah.
And still focus on adults only and romantic getaways.
Yeah. Yeah. Really true. Rebecca, when your clients ask you, oh, maybe I'm thinking about a honeymoon, I'm comparing it to Italy, maybe Cancun, it's a bit cheesy, maybe Costa Rica. How do you sell Costa Rica as a romantic destination?
So I think a lot of people think of adults only and they're like, okay, well, let's go to a sandals in the Caribbean or something like that. But if you get a little more creative, Costa Rica has a lot of these, like we said, like these amazing boutique hotels in the rainforest or even on the beach, but with not a lot of rooms, really more intimate. And I think, especially for a honeymoon, it's not only the adults only aspect, but the fact that you're going to get so much personalized service and like so much more intimacy from these really small hotels.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So let's get into it. We've got two things here to discuss. We've got adult-only resorts, not necessarily sandals, as you mentioned, Rebecca, here in Costa Rica, and we've got boutique hotels. So let's start with the resorts. So Jess, say I'm looking for a resort. I want to be by the beach. I've got this idea in my head, and I'm kind of set on it. What are my options in Costa Rica when it comes to the adult-only style?
Yeah, so I always ask people to when we first hop on a call or we connect via email, what is it you want to do? Because if you want to do the tours and the zip lining and the waterfalls and do all of those things, it might not make the most sense to do a large resort where you're paying five, six, seven, eight, $900 a night when you're going to be off site half the day. And I think perhaps some of our travelers or even our repeat travelers are used to going to some other destinations where that is the culture of staying at the resort and then just going off site to do some tours. Here in Costa Rica, you don't have to do that. So I always like to first find out if it's truly the resort that they're looking for and the resort experience, or if they're actually more of a better fit for a boutique hotel. Um, and maybe one, you know, to go off site and do tours and things like that. But as far as, you know, if the resort is the best option for them, and what they're looking for, and they want to kind of be a little bit more secluded and they enjoy the resort amenities, I'd say the top one here in Costa Rica is probably Secrets. You know, there in Papagayo, it's super close to the Liberia airport. You've got the beach right there. There's tons of rooms. They've got you know, if you want the jacuzzis on your balcony and things like that, they have those options. Of course, booking in advance is a good suggestion there because that hotel does book up pretty quick. But yeah, as far as resorts go, you know, defining if that's the right option for you. And then as far as like large adults only resorts, talking, you know, more than 100 rooms, Costa Rica doesn't have a ton. I'd say that this country probably focuses on more and has more of the niche of the smaller boutique. Even if they're resorts and have some of those amenities, the large, you know, 200-300 room resorts that are adults only here, we don't have a ton of. It's kind of going back to what Rebecca said earlier. I don't think you know, we have some of those like smaller, more intimate boutique options as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've discussed on many webinars where the resorts are located, 100 plus rooms, the larger brand names up in the north of the country, the Guanacaste area, very accessible from the Liberia International Airport. So Secrets is great if you want I guess you would say it's a slightly smaller resort in terms of how many rooms, but you do get that, I guess, as resorts go, slightly nicer experience, personalized in terms of the adult only approach. That's a great place if you are fixed on the resort. As you say, there's not many in Costa Rica. It doesn't necessarily, as a country, sell itself in terms of like Cancun, when you've got a couple of miles of just huge 3, 4, 5-star resorts right on the beach, right? Very different vibe in Costa Rica. When it comes to boutique hotels, Rebecca, we have, you know, literally hundreds. There's a lot of romantic options. I guess if I was a client and I go, you know, I want to have something, I want an option by the rainforest, potentially the volcano, because I want to see Arenal, and I also want to go to the beach. So 2 locations. How do you present 2 or 3, maybe 4 great boutique options for couples, potentially adults only? So where would you start?
So for the rainforest, I would say like our top two go to, although they are really luxurious, so they come with that price tag, would be Niagara Springs or Amor Arenal. Those are fantastic for people on their honeymoon or just couples in general. The Amor Arenal, they have the jacuzzi. Niagara Springs, they have the plunge pool. So that always ups the romantic factor. And then for the beach, I would say Casa Cameleon. There's actually two properties, one in Playa Danta, Las Catalinas, and the other one, Malpais. Malpais would be great for someone who's really looking for something off the beaten path, and not your typical resort experience. It's really small, really intimate, private plunge pools. And Las Catalinas has some of the best views. The Casa Cameleon there has some of the best views in the country, I would say, of the ocean. Private plunge pools overlooking the ocean.
Yeah, I mean that's four really, really good options. And you've given me two beach locations, two really close by at the Arenal area. Nyada, for those of you that don't know, is a really good chain that's been operating for over 10 years now. They've broken out into 3 separate resorts, very high end, and that Nyada Springs option is a lovely option for being adults only, so segmented from the rest of the resort. So you don't get kids crossing over to the pool, it will be adult only. And for those of you who are working on your Spanish, Amor Arenal literally means love Arenal. So it's designed, right, for couples specifically. Nice rooms, beautiful location, king bed, very, very romantic. Really good ones. And the Casa Cameleons, I guess you could call them both, although they're not the same brand, right? It's not the same owner, operator. They just share the name.
I don't know, Jess, do you know? I'm not sure.
You can book both of them on the same website. So I think that they are,
Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
I think
Okay.
they
I didn't
are
know.
related. I think they may have different like management teams, but I think the owner might be the same or maybe like partners or socios. I'm not sure. But when you go on Casa Cameleon's website, you choose if you want Las Catalinas or Malpais.
Oh, that's my bad. That must be. There you go. I didn't realize. So there must be a very similar experience then. I've seen the images and they both look beautiful, but I wasn't aware that you could book them. There you go. I see. I learned something as well, even on the same webinar. Fantastic.
And I wanted to sprinkle in there, Adam, too. One of my new favorites, Rebecca, I don't know if you've been doing this lately, but one of my new favorites is the new townhouses and villas at Los Altos. So whenever I have travelers that are like, Jess, I want to come and do and see it all, but I don't want to travel like tons of hours. And I don't, we can only come for 5 days or 4 days. Where should I go and what should I do? For me, a really good catch-all is there in the Manuel Antonio area and Los Altos. They have some new adults only villas, which are stunning. So you have the beach right there, along with an infinity pool that looks over, the amazing view. You've got scarlet macaws that fly in front of you. But then you have the jungle and rainforest just like 10 minutes away. So we've got some really awesome tours. Like if someone wants to be active and see waterfalls and do hiking and go to national parks and they want that experience but don't want to have to do sometime in Arnold, sometime at the beach, they want to just do one location, that's a really awesome option. Especially if they're like, hey, I don't want to drive 3 hours either. There's a really nice flight from San Jose down to Quepos, which takes like 25 minutes. It's super quick. So that's been one of my new favorites too when it comes to, just one large catch-all. That's a really nice property, and those rooms are super baller.
How do you answer the question? Because it is a great property. But as I understand it, that's not adult only, right? Kids can still use the other rooms.
The townhouses and villas that they just built are adults only.
Okay.
So the entire property as a whole is not, but it does have kind of that resort style, right? So it's got the gym, it's got a game room. It does have rooms that allow for kids, but the new part of the property that they built is kind of more like in the tree canopy versus more up by the road. And so you do get that secluded vibe. And that area is adults only. So that's where they have like the yoga deck and things like that. So yes, when you go to breakfast, you might see kids, but then when you're in like the public areas near your rooms, that part's adults only.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Rebecca, it's kind of similar to one of the hotels that we do sell a lot because it's very popular when it's an all-inclusive is the Western Playa Conchal. In a similar fashion, their royal section, I believe, is adults only as well. How is that? Is that it's kind of the similar thing that you mentioned with the townhouse at Los Altos, right, Jess? It's you can be on site, Rebecca, at the Western in your own section, but also have access to everything else where there are kids, obviously the beach at the Western. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So the club section is for adults only. It has its own lounge, it has its own pool, and the rooms themselves are only for adults. If you leave that section, the other restaurants and the other pools and the beach, you could definitely encounter children.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about the club section is they don't allow adults who are staying in the other parts of the resort to go there, so it doesn't get too crowded. It's really only for the people that are staying in the club section, so it does feel a little bit more intimate.
Is the secrets also all inclusive?
It is,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so that's basically two good options if you do want the resort all-inclusive vibe, adult only, the Royal Club section at the Western Conchal, and then you've got the secrets up in Guanacaste. You've mentioned the two beautiful properties of Las Catalinas, Casa Camilion, and then the one down in Malpais, as well as Los Altos in Mount Antonio. I think it's worth mentioning Cura Design Villas. So if you do want a really unique experience, kind of top end in the luxury, heading a bit further down the Central Pacific coast towards Uvita, I believe they have a couple of new villas as well, which offer stunning views. I've been lucky enough to go a couple of times. Jess, maybe you want to go into a bit more detail about what Cura includes.
Yeah, so Kura and also the Oxygen Jungle Villas, which are also there in Ubita. That location is super unique and different because it's not quite a beach property. So when you're in Manuel Antonio at a place like Gaia or Los Altos, you have, within 5 minutes you can be down at the beach. There in Uvita, the cool part is that you're literally up on the bluff, right? So up in the mountain. So you have this 180-degree view of the whale's tail and really, really, really amazing view. But to get down to the beach is about like a 25-30 minute drive. So it's definitely a little bit of a drive. If you drive yourself, you need a 4x4. Otherwise, the hotels do offer shuttles as well. But if you're like, hey, again, I only want to go to one location and I want a little bit of the rainforest, green, lush, and beautiful, but I also want to have the option to go to the beach if I want. Those two are both really great properties. Kuda, of course, if you have to choose, is amazing. The food, the culinary experience there, the service. We, as travel consultants, get to stay all over the country in the low season and go see the properties and the new rooms and the updates and the new menus and things like that. I've always said that for me, Kuda has the best service that I've experienced in this country. You show up and they know who you are, what your allergies are, if you're celebrating something, where you're coming from. Like it's amazing. I'd say Kuda and Nayar are probably tied for best service. But if you're on a honeymoon or looking to plan a romantic getaway, it's kind of hard to top Kuda.
Yeah.
But I think it just depends, how active you want to be, because that is a property where, if you're there for 4 or 5 nights, maybe you do a 2 or 1 or 2 days, but it's not really a property that you're just going to sleep at. It's definitely more of like a getaway property or location.
Yeah. Yeah, really
Um,
good points. We've discussed some really beautiful places. What the properties that you guys have mentioned obviously are lovely, top end. Just before we went on air, Jess, you asked a really interesting question that I know people have been asking you. When you compare price options, we've discussed resorts, top end resorts, beautiful top end boutique hotels. How does the cost compare not only from the boutique options to the resort options, but also your top end to really nice, but not necessarily super luxury? What kind of prices differentials are we discussing here?
yeah, I love when people are used to going to places like Mexico and they call me and they're like, "Hey, I want a resort all inclusive." And we start talking about it and the cost, and they're actually looking for something totally different, right? Which is what we talked about before. Costa Rica has some beautiful options, super intimate, adults only properties that maybe are considered a 3-star, but they're comfy and cozy and quaint, and the service is great. One of my personal favorites is Jardín de Edén. They're in Tamarindo. The gardens are beautiful. They have hummingbird feeders. You get monkeys that come by in the mornings. It's across the street from the beach and you can walk into town. So the location is great. When talking about price, of course, some of the resorts here are going to be for adults only, probably, of course, depending on the season, 5, 6, 7, $800 a night. And then if you go to the top luxury, 5-star who does, maybe you're talking even a little bit more than that. But we have some really, really great options, like that I personally enjoy staying at as someone who travels all over the country for $250 a night, right? And some of those hotels even include, maybe they're not all inclusive, but for example, Jardín de la Leng includes dinner as well. So if you want to go off and be adventurous during the day and go ride some ATVs or go zip lining, and maybe that includes lunch. You have breakfast included at the hotel. You go and do a tour during the day, or you walk around town and grab lunch, and then you come back to the hotel and dinner is included there as well. So not only is the overall experience as far as the hotel and property goes very nice, but also the added value and what else is included is a good bang for your buck. So I'd say when it comes to price, adults only, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get a really great experience. You don't have to stay at one of the luxury resorts. You can easily stay, $250 a night. Of course, it depends on the season. Probably can't get that on New Year's, but and then it probably jumps up, $300-$400 for still really nice accommodations. But
Yeah.
you don't have to spend an arm and a leg, to stay at some of these really romantic, beautiful hotels.
Really, really, really awesome information. Yeah, really helpful, because sometimes I think Costa Rica can be on the steep end, depending on where you want to stay and the experience you can have. But it's really good that you mentioned that comparison. Jardín de la Then, lovely location. That's another one that we've discussed now, up in Tamarindo as well. Good stuff. I mean, we've already ripped on a couple of great properties. We're 20 minutes in. Guys, don't forget to get your questions and answers in if you have them. You can reach out in the question and answers. I got a couple here. Melissa's been in touch. Thank you, Melissa. We'll be following up for sure. There's a couple of anonymous questions as well. Keep them coming, guys. We're going to ask all of them towards the end. Wendy might follow up with you directly for a more detailed answer. Thank you, Wendy. But yeah, guys, let us know. Okay, Rebecca, so I want to move slightly towards the wellness and spa experience. So a lot of people, when thinking about romance, you're coming down, you want a lovely massage, maybe a facial, maybe you want some good downtime, you want to disconnect, maybe enjoy some yoga, perhaps you want to do it in a couple in a couple setting. How does Costa Rica cater specifically to the wellness and spa scene? And can you recommend a couple of properties if that is what you're looking for to go to?
So Costa Rica is huge on the wellness scene. It is very popular, obviously, for yogis and people coming down here to sort of disconnect. Um, so there's a lot of towns that are a little bit more, I think, catering towards the wellness, like Nosara, Santa Teresa, those kinds of places. Like the Casa Camellia in Malpais that we mentioned before, that's very close to Santa Teresa, which is a huge wellness center in Costa Rica. Also Uvita, so we mentioned Cura before. Uvita is another huge center of wellness in Costa Rica. A lot of people come for retreats and things like that. And obviously incredible spas with organic products and that kind of thing is pretty common at all of these places. So really any of the properties that we've mentioned before, like Nayara has an incredible spa, Moore has an incredible spa. Any of these places are going to be able to cater to someone who's looking for kind of a wellness and spa retreat, and also typically are going to offer yoga classes as well. And even some places have a little bit more like hippy dippy type treatments as well, if that's what you're into.
Yeah, nice. And Jess, what about if I don't want to be at the beach? Maybe I want to experience it in the Central Valley or the Arenal area before going to the beach.
Yeah, two things. I also just wanted to add on to what Rebecca was saying. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but wellness, I think, also kind of exploded a bit here in Costa Rica because we have this really great blue zone, right? And so a lot of people hear about this blue zone, which there's only a few in the world where people live most commonly to 100 years old. And so that part of the country here is definitely creating more experiences for tourists to come and experience the way of life there. And I think that's awesome. For me personally, it's really intriguing. So I think that has definitely drawn some, it's definitely attracted some people to that area, which is not far from where Rebecca was mentioning Nosara, Santa Teresa. It's not far from there.
Yeah, like the
When
Nicoya area, right? As a general, if where is this blue zone? What kind of Nicoya? So that's bearing, I guess, west, or
Yeah, and to pair it into the conversation for today, they have Azura Resort, which is an all-inclusive over there, but it's also adults only. So that's if you want the resort vibe or you want the adults only vibe, they do have that option there. But to go back to your other question about the rainforest area, the other day I had a repeat traveler who called me. She's like, my husband and I, we want to come back and we want to do a wellness trip. And we at Costa Rica Vacations and Namo Travel don't do, like, we don't plan our own wellness retreats. But I asked her, what does that mean to you? And so she started to explain, like, no, I want to go see like the markets, and I want to be able to buy fresh fruit and veggies, and I want to do yoga every morning. And so we actually built her own wellness trip with her husband. And it was really interesting because wellness is, I think, it's such a big umbrella. Like, it includes so many things from food to meditation to yoga to different experiences. So I think it means something different to everyone as well. But here in La Fortuna, we have the markets on Fridays and Saturdays if you want to go and experience, and buy some fresh fruit. That's super different from where you're from. Or, you want to do a cooking class, there's tons of options. Or the Fogón de Chela, which is, gets a little bit of the culture aspect in there too, with the wood fire grill and doing the cooking class there. But also, if you want, there's some amazing spa treatments. And here in the rainforest, it's definitely becoming a little bit more popular where they do the spa treatments in the rainforest. So you're hearing the toucans and the monkeys, and you're really indulging yourself with the nature and wildlife around you, which is super, super unique and different if you've never done something like that before. Especially if there's like a small palapa and it starts, you're underneath there and it starts to rain a little bit, like it's truly something really special. So
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of different options here in the rainforest area. And again, it doesn't have to be one of the ultra luxury properties. There are some, 3 or 4-star properties that do some really great spa treatments too, or have some of those other wellness aspects.
I think it goes back to what we were discussing at the start of the conversation regarding the diversity in geographical landscape, but also the diversity in hotel offerings, different properties, whether it's 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. You can get a lovely massage in a 3-star hotel, but it happens to be outside in the rainforest and it starts to rain. You have that amazing experience, right? I also I resonate a lot with what you're saying about wellness. For everybody, that could mean something very, very different, whether that is just culturally immersing yourself into an experience of living like the locals do, getting more involved in the community, disconnecting and living in a way momentarily that perhaps is different from your own, to an amazing spa experience, being outside, connecting with the wildlife, maybe going to the Osa Peninsula, having those wildlife trips for a lot of couples or people looking for that connection might be as well. That's probably just really soul enriching. So I imagine, that is arguably a really nice wellness experience as well, right? I definitely have to throw in El Silencio Lodge. Again, I've mentioned it a couple of times on various podcasts and webinars. My personal favorite hotel. Really nice if you are looking for the yoga connection in the morning. Really lovely therapy, spa treatments, but also really nice service. And that's not too far away from the San Jose International Airport, located in the cloud forest on the way up to the volcano. So that's lovely. Another place that, for me, that's wellness as well. A little bit cooler. Like you say, not always on the beach, Jess. Great stuff. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree with both of you more. One of my questions here, Rebecca, we've kind of already touched on when it comes to honeymoon destinations and exclusivity of experiences. I mean, Jess mentioned, as did you, mentioning going to the Arenal volcano, maybe Niagara Springs or Amor Arenal, then going to somewhere like Casa Camilion, either one, Cura. The combination of packages is what makes the honeymoon special, mixed in, I think, with all the adventures, which is entirely dependent on what our clients or what our guests would like to experience, right? So I think you build those honeymoon locations and the destinations really work really well together. So rather than discussing, more of the same that we've done, I'd like to ask you a little bit about secluded beaches and private retreats. I mean, private retreats might be a bit more complicated, but in terms of maybe I don't want to go only to a hotel that's adult only. I want to be in a destination that's slightly quieter and a bit more secluded. Where are a couple of hidden gems when it comes to romance and being slightly isolated that you'd suggest?
So it's actually not the beach, but I thought of Rio Perdido. It's not strictly adults only, but I think it's 8 and up or 11 and up, something like that. They don't allow very, very small children. Um, And you get a lot of price points with Rio Perdido, which is nice because they have different categories of bungalow. They're all freestanding. Um, and it's really like a destination hotel. It's a place where you go and you don't really leave the property. They do offer off-site tours, but a lot of the things they do on site, like river tubing, zip lining, that kind of thing. The food is amazing. It's farm to table. You can go visit the farm and see the garden, and take a tour of it. And they just opened some new bungalows, the West bungalows. It's the highest category that they have, but it's perfect for honeymoon because they have private plunge pools, opens up into the forest. So yeah, that one is great if you want something off the beaten path for sure.
Nice. Yeah, Rio Perdido is great. And also really good activities for adults specifically as well, mountain biking, hiking in the canyons, the zip lining. So you can find a few, families there. But like you say, that location itself is definitely doesn't ever feel like there's just loads of people. So you do feel a bit more kind of off the beaten path. Jess, is there anywhere that
Right.
you love to send people, perhaps when you're focusing on beaches, smaller beach locations that you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think too, people read on social media or articles that they read online, like, oh, I don't want to go to Tamarindo because it's full of people. It's like, well, yeah, it's definitely a popular destination, but there are some locations that even though it's a popular destination, there are some properties or hotels that do a really good job at secluding themselves. So for example, Hermosa in Guanacaste, I'm going to go down visually in my head looking at the map. So like Bosque del Mar has some of like their honeymoon suites or those beachfront suites, which it's not an adults only hotel, but there's only one other hotel on that beach, like beachfront, and it's a very small hotel. So that property very oftentimes feels quite secluded, especially if you're going during a time of the year when kids are still in school. A lot of these hotels that aren't adults only feel adults only because kids are in school.
Yeah.
Maybe you get the occasional kid or two that, is celebrating a grandparent's birthday or something, but it's very common that, if you travel in May, which is one of my favorite times to come, you go to a property like Bosque del Mar and you don't see kids. I also think that Nantipa is a really awesome property. It's of course, close to Santa Teresa, and there's tons going on in that beach town. But this property is much more secluded, so you get that secluded vibe, but you're close to, things to do and restaurants and things like that. Moving further south, Manuel Antonio, again, a popular destination, but for example, Arenas del Mar does a really great job at feeling a little bit more secluded because they're down on their own beach and things like that. I think if you're specifically looking for a property that's secluded and doesn't have much around there and perhaps is more romantic, Alma de Pacifico is pretty secluded there when it comes to, nearby towns. You can get to Jaco or Hermosa, de Jaco in, 15, 20 minutes. But those properties are all really great. But I think it's important not to turn away from certain property or certain beach towns that actually might be a really great fit for you because they're popular. I think the properties and hotels do a really great job if they're a secluded property for example, Capitan Suizo in Tamarindo. Tamarindo again is a huge beach town, but Capitan Suizo does a really great job at, being kind of its own destination within Tamarindo. And so, just making sure that you have a good idea of the hotel and understanding who they are and kind of who they cater to. Here in the rainforest area, Tabacon definitely has their adults only niche, and they have kind of their own part of the hot springs where you can get your own cabana and it's adults
Yeah.
only. Although the property is open to families too. So to answer your question, I think there's a ton of different properties. And even if you want to go to a location or beach town that's more popular or has more things to do or restaurants where that's more visited, there are still and probably tons of options for hotels that are going to get you still that secluded or adults only vibe.
Listening to you speak, I think one of the really interesting things is some of the areas that you mentioned, as well as properties, the actual beach examples that you gave are going to be beaches that are never going to be full of people. So initially, Alma del Pacifico, you're on a huge stretch in Esterillos on the way to Jaco, where you've got this, mile, 2, 3, 4 mile long beach where you'll maybe see one person walking their dog, riding a horse, maybe one surfer, because it's so large. The same with Nantipa. It's not the biggest beachfront area in the Santa Teresa area. And these are kind of the things that Bosque del Mar is a great example. Hermosa Beach in Guanacaste. It is never going to be packed. It's not going to be as busy in the high season as, say, Tamarindo or Flamingo or Conchal Beach, where you will see a lot of people based on the properties that surround it. And I think that's a really big advantage of speaking to you guys and speaking to the experts. It's about choosing properties that have access to these more secluded beaches that just don't have massive amounts of tourism or even that many locals, nacionales. So you will feel like you're kind of a bit more private and a bit more secluded. I think that's a really good point.
Because I think all the time, Rebecca, I don't know about you, but for me, I get a lot of my travelers that are like, I want to go experience Costa Rica, but I don't want to be with a bunch of people. And therefore, I don't want to go to Tamarindo, La Fortuna. And it's like, whoa. Those places are huge. And there's so many things to do there because a lot of people, I would say, even people that are looking for a romantic getaway, they still want to go out and do things and experience wildlife and hanging bridges or ziplining, or they want to be able to do things. They don't necessarily just want to come to Costa Rica to stay at a hotel for 5 nights on the beach. I'd say
Yeah.
that's probably 10% of the travelers that are looking for something similar. Most people want to be around or want to be able to go walk around and check out restaurants or see live music, but then they want to be able to come back to the hotel and feel, that peace and relaxation and wildlife and not a ton of kiddos screaming at the pool.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very true. Guys, don't forget, get your questions in. A few more are coming in. Laura G, thanks for reaching out. Gordon Thompson, we will be getting back to you guys. Interestingly enough, we did do a couple of years back now a video when we used to host this in our office. I'm going to share a link with you on the subject of romance, what to do, where to go. It was an old podcast. So if you do have more time and want to research more, I've shared the link in the chat as well, so you can double back. A lot of these discussions and points are actually evergreen. They don't really change in Costa Rica. If anything, they get better. We try and share more of our hidden gems and our ideas. We certainly got a couple more questions that I'd like to get through before we do get to your questions. And one thing, of course, you can't discuss romantic adult-only getaway themes without discussing weddings. Now, I think at some point we're going to be doing a webinar probably on weddings here in Costa Rica, destination weddings. Yes, you've got a lot of experience with planning weddings here in Costa Rica. Can you summarize a couple of the best spots to perhaps host your wedding in Costa Rica and how you might go about doing that?
Yeah, so I actually just planned my own wedding here in Costa Rica back in June, which I think you and I chatted about on some of the previous podcasts and things like that. For me personally, me and my husband are not big resort people, so we did not want to do the big all-inclusive resort on the beach. We also love the cool mountain air. We don't love the hot beaches. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so naturally love the cooler weather. And so we specifically chose to do more of a rainforest experience. And it's interesting because there's kind of like two buckets that I'd say most people fall into. And it's either I want something unique, a destination wedding, maybe it's an elopement too, or maybe it's just 5, 6 people, maybe just you, your best friends, and parents. And those people oftentimes want to do they want to get married under a waterfall and they want something super unique and different. That's where I would suggest the rainforest area. So here in La Fortuna, having more of like a local experience. Some people are like, I want to have 250 people. I want to get married on the beach. We want to do a sunset boat tour the day before for the reception or the rehearsal. I'm sorry. And so in that case, Guanacaste is a really great option. We've got some hotels out there that do a really great job, at the larger resort weddings. So I'd say it probably depends on which bucket you fall into, either unique, different, green, lush, beautiful waterfalls, or resort all inclusive, kind of just want to keep it simple, and do more of like the beach thing.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, it depends entirely on the individual, where you want to go. I was very lucky myself to get married 3 years ago this Saturday, and I decided, much like you, Jess, I like the cool weather. And we opted for the Central Valley here in February. And it was beautiful. It kind of guaranteed dry weather. It was an outdoor setting with beautiful mountain views. So that's a nice thing if you do want to think about where and then what time of year. So if you are looking, for the rainforest, but you're considering sometime between June and November, you may have to plan for an indoor experience because you can't guarantee dry weather, right? But if you are wanting a beach wedding and you do want to be outside and you want the best sunsets, January to April, February to May, you may be, slightly safer, I guess. Um, and then I guess Jess, just to ask, what about cost? Summarize, is it just if I want 150 people, it's going to cost 20 grand? If it's going to be intimate, less than 50, I can get away with $5,000 to $10,000. How does it vary?
I love this question because I have so many travelers that reach out after they had done some of their own research and they're like, please just tell me it's not going to be 10 grand. Like, I just want a small elopement. I just
Yeah.
want something simple. We can legally get married here in the States. We just want to come and do something symbolic. And you can do it for pretty cheap. Like, tropical flowers here are a dime a dozen. If you get a great officiant, if you want a photographer, like the prices are pretty low. So I'd say really it starts anywhere. I've even, for some travelers, if they're like, Jess, I really don't need a wedding planner. All I want are flowers, some champagne, maybe a photographer, and my best friend's coming to officiate. We want to go to the La Fortuna waterfall. You can do it for less than $1,000.
Brilliant.
I mean, the entrance to the waterfall is $18. If you go at 7 a.m., there tends to be no one there. You can
Yeah.
go to the little deck there and do your thing. Of course, if you want to privatize things and you want bouquets for your bridesmaids and everything you add, it's going to get a little bit more expensive. But if you're truly simple, because some people call them like, I just want something simple, and then it gets like more and more expensive as the planning goes on. Then I would recommend a planner and things like that, which the planners really depend on the location you choose and kind of what you're looking to do. Some hotels even include it. So for example, here in La Fortuna, Chioro is a popular property I like to use, and they include the wedding planner that they have on site. You can choose to use her or you can use someone else. We work really closely with Blue Butterflies, with Tui. She owns that company, does an amazing job. But then, of course, if you do something like the Westin or the resorts, they will oftentimes have their own planners as well. But as far
Excellent.
as
Yeah.
cost, sorry, to go back to your question, cost, it ranges. It can be as cheap as $1,000 or it can go up to 200, 250 per person, kind of depending on where you go and what's all included.
It's really nice to know that there's so much variation, and obviously chatting to us, not being specific wedding planners, you can get really the honest information. If you don't want to be spending big 4-figure, 5-figure sums, you can do it, and you can do it slightly cheaper, and it depends entirely what you want. Jess, your contact information and the podcast specifically for weddings is in the chat. Thank you for sharing that, Wendy. So we will do something at some point, guys, about weddings specific, but do check out Jess's podcast with Tui. And if you are interested on the wedding destination wedding experience, reach out to us. We're going to give you the good, honest information, and of course, plan around you guys as well. Okay, a couple more questions before we wrap up. Rebecca, we touched on it very momentarily earlier. Romantic themes, dining experiences, beautiful sunsets. These are the kind of things you see on social media reels consistently around Costa Rica. Where are your couple of highlighted areas if you want to see a great sunset and you want really good dining? Where do you recommend?
So, like Flamingo Beach, Tamarindo Beach, they both have great sunset views. You can pretty much all year round see the sunset actually setting down into the water. And there's a lot of beachfront restaurants and places like bars to go in both towns. So both of those are great. And then as far as like special romantic things, a lot of hotels will offer private dinners for couples, honeymooners, or just anyone who wants, like in private gazebos in the rainforest, things like that, either at the beach or in the rainforest.
Nice. Yeah, there always seems to be a hotel when I'm going filming and we're shooting something for Frog TV. They always say we need a romantic dinner. So that it seems to be a requisite now, much like a swimming pool or a fancy master suite, where you have a space. It seems to be so common where you can do that romantic dining experience and it's kind of set aside. although there are certainly some that are more unique than others, you know, with a little path down. I remember years ago, you just mentioned Flamingo. The Palms was a small little rental property right on the beachfront, super nice. But they set up a table literally on the edge of the beach, and the sunset was going down. And this was like 2016, 2017. And I just remember the colors whilst eating dinner was absolutely spectacular, because it is just like, you know, the painting, like you know, Monet's Vanilla Sky, like just incredible. You know, it's not just you know, oh, there's a beautiful rainforest, you might see a waterfall. That was like an incredible mix of both of them, and that always stuck with me in terms of nature's scenery. Jess, is there any places that you like specifically for dining that's like in your, like locked in your mind?
We did a really cool one at Casa Camaleon, the one near Las Catalinas. They have like a small palapa there where they do their private dinners. And they even have like, so you're kind of you're like a few steps down from the pool area. It's a very small hotel. There's what, only like 18, 20 rooms there. It's very small. But so you're in like this private little casita, and they have you know, like the sheer um like material that's kind of going past you. They're not like walls or anything.
Yeah,
And then when the sun sets, the pool, which is like right next to you, they could light up with fire, which is super cool. So you have, again, those cool, beautiful colors in the sky, but you also have this, I don't want to call it a light show, but you have this really unique, different water fire experience next to you
yeah,
as well. And that was just really cool because also when the sun goes down, it's dark, right? So
yeah,
sometimes you're like, okay, now I can't quite see
yeah, yeah.
you know, the
Exactly.
stake. But they did I mean, the lights after the sunset too were beautiful and super romantic. So just the
Yeah.
whole experience was really cool. Um, and they actually now have a like a wine cellar experience too, which doesn't have as nice of a view as the private dinner for, you know, for the sunset, but that was a culinary experience as far as
Yeah.
like romantic dinners that we really enjoyed.
Yeah, Casa Chameleon seems like the place people need to get to for these combination experiences. Very, very cool. Well, I'm going to throw this last one to both of you guys. So, Rebecca, we'll start with you. Again, it's always wrapping up time, but what tips do you have for planning the ultimate surprise proposal or anniversary trip? Anything specific?
I guess what I would say is think about, you know, what your partner would appreciate the most, because some people are more beach people, some people are more rainforest people. There's some really cool experiences like a private horseback riding picnic tour in Arenal by the volcano. That would be an amazing place to propose. Or in front of the La Fortuna waterfall, something like that. Pretty much all of our tours can be made private. So in that case, that's a good time to kind of be able to talk to someone local and arrange like what would be the best place to do a proposal. But definitely, there's a lot of options for anyone, no matter what they like.
I love it. Two really good ones, especially in front of the volcano and the rainforest. You're always going to remember that. Jess, do you have any top tips?
Um, I'd say for the proposals, kind of piggybacking off Rebecca, just knowing your partner, right? So I've talked to so many guys that are like, I'm so nervous, she's gonna know. And I'm like, just do something that's natural for you guys. If you guys love hiking, do the waterfall. It's beautiful. And if you want to get photos, for example, you know, some of the proposals, you know, they want to be able to document, especially because a lot of them come by themselves and then they want to share it with their family and they want to have beautiful photos to share. Trust your local providers, you know, whether it be a tour guide that's going with you or a photographer that you're hiring locally. Trust that they're going to capture the moment and just enjoy it. I've probably done 10 proposals at the La Fortuna waterfall, and it's always stunning. It's always beautiful, especially since they're public places. You know, you get down there and your fiance doesn't know who the photographer is, and if there's someone with a camera, it's super common because
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
tourist spot, right? Or you know, if it's a sunset boat tour, you know, trust your the captain or your boat crew.
yeah.
So just trusting the locals, and the people that you know you're either being referred to or using for the services, and knowing your partner and making it feel the most natural. You know, do you guys just love going to resorts and all inclusives? maybe it is a private dinner if that's something that you guys really enjoy, or maybe it is, you know, hiking. I've even had people take the rings with their tour guides on zip lining and waterfall rappelling tours. The guides are super amazing and great. So it can be as unique and different as you'd like, and just trusting the people that you're using to make the experience really wonderful.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's so true. It always comes back to the individuals. I mean, as we always say, the ability to customize, in this case, know your partner, speak to your travel consultant, and plan these incredible experiences. Guys, if you do want more information on proposals, we've shared a link there, but also potential wedding hotels. We've shared that with you guys publicly in the chat. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, all of this information will be in the description box below, so you can double check our links and head directly to the right place. Guys, fantastic information. Thanks, Jess, Rebecca. I will very shortly put both of your emails and contact information in the chat box as well in the descriptions in YouTube. But let's jump into a couple of questions that we've had today. We've had a couple of people reach out. Melissa earlier, thanks Melissa for following up. Melissa Bedlington. We have shared the links in the chat. I know you were looking for the specific mentions earlier on. I think Wendy's also given you a few website links. You were also asking towards the end of the webinar, loads of information. Thanks very much. What's your recommendation for an affordable hotel for thrill seekers and folks that won't be in the hotel often? One that's both close to hiking and beautiful beaches, plus some options to explore the country's culture, food, and nightlife. That's a big list. That's a pretty good one. Rebecca, anything that pops out immediately to you there?
So, I mean, whenever someone says nightlife, I'm pretty much going to send them to Tamarindo if that's what they are looking for. But honestly, it sounds like what would be good for Melissa is a trip with 2 locations, which is what we do most of the time. But the hiking is going to be great in Arenal by the volcano. So what I would do is a split trip between a few days at the volcano, a few days at the beach. That way you get, you know, the culture, the food, the hiking, the wildlife in Arenal, and then you can balance it out with some time at the beach and nightlife in Tamarindo.
Yeah, good answer. Some people would suggest Hako for the nightlife, but you did mention beautiful beaches. And although Hako's fine if you want to go surfing, it's not the most beautiful beach for swimming. And like you mentioned, Rebecca, you got a load of options in terms of adventures out of Tamarindo. Good beaches in the surrounding area, plenty of hiking. And I guess also the ability to do more cultural tours in the Guanacaste area or even a trip to Liberia. And you've got good restaurants as well. So yeah, really good one. No worries. She says, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. We have an anonymous attendee, Jess, that was asking what top activities are nearby to the adult-only hotels. I guess that depends, you know, momentarily on when we were discussing it. But say you were going for the resort at Secrets or the Western Conchal, do you have access from the resorts to an immediate variety of things to do?
I'd say every adult-only hotel, especially the ones that we work with, I'd be lying if I said I've been to every one in the country. But the ones that we work with, almost all of them have nearby activities. If you're looking at the Secrets or the Westin, you can easily get to the rainforest area within about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So you can do some waterfalls, you can do zip line, you can do ATVing, but you've also got the ocean right there. So if you wanted to do like a snorkel tour or something like that, you've got you know, the rainforest it will be a little bit of some transportation time, but you can easily check that out. Not necessarily Arnold, but we've got the Rincon de la Vieja volcano over there, which has some of its own really cool tours. And then of course you've got the tours right there on the beach if you want to go snorkeling, or if you're into scuba diving or kayaking, paddleboarding, especially some of those hotels will include those for you.
Yeah. Yeah, really good point. And guys, I think it's worth mentioning. It's a great question. When we onboard a hotel, we have a very vigorous process of checking it out, making sure it's suitable, suitable for us, suitable for you guys. But also we make sure there's plenty of activities to do within a reasonable distance from every destination that we sell. It's quite rare that we sell such a unique hotel that doesn't offer anything, because then it'd be quite difficult. Rebecca mentioned Rio Perdido. That is its own destination property with plenty to do directly on site, and you go to that hotel for that specific reason. So like Jess says, although it's an open-ended question, depending on where you are, there will be things to do around any hotel pretty much around the country. So thanks for getting that one in. Rebecca, Laura asked, are there common dress codes for the resorts or hotels that we've discussed, especially for the high-end options, especially when it comes to like dining? Is that a common occurrence or a common issue here?
Honestly, typically no. Costa Rica is quite casual. I mean, there are some hotels that have higher end restaurants, like the Springs, where they have a fine dining restaurant. They don't really have even a strict dress code there. Just, men, you would want to wear something with a collar and closed-toed shoes and all that. But it's pretty uncommon to have a real dress code.
Yeah, it's always quite relaxed, right? And like you said, maybe there's a couple of 5-star branded properties where they have like a closed restaurant where you probably would be turned away in board shorts and flip-flops. But otherwise it's pretty Pura Vida, right? Around most of the country. Thanks. And then, okay, so we've got one question here. Gordon Thompson, thanks for getting in touch, Gordon. It's kind of an open-ended question. Jess, I'll throw it to you maybe to summarize. Can you talk about Osa Peninsula? So at some point, it would be great to do, real off the beaten path, natural wonder, the Osa Peninsula, the Corcovado National Park, beautiful area in the south of the country, especially if you want to see wildlife. How would you summarize the Osa Peninsula for those interested, Jess?
Yeah. So Rebecca and I actually started travel consulting at the same time. And I can tell you personally that I have never suggested or sold the Osa Peninsula as much as I have in the last 12 months. It used to be this place that was super hard to get to, super expensive because most of the properties require a boat ride. Therefore, they have to import all of their foods and they're meal inclusive. And it used to be kind of a harder recommendation. Now, with the domestic flights, it's super easy to get to. The properties have done an amazing job at including on-site and off-site tours and experiences. The service has gotten really great. I'd say at least the hotels we work with have done an amazing job at hiring. And the wildlife there is so virgin and so lovely. I would almost argue it's better than any other in the country. So if you have the time, I'd say minimum between 3 and 4 nights. 4 nights is ideal. 3 nights is okay. And you have that time on your vacation to go down there, it is 125% worth it. I had actually never been until about a year and a half ago. And I had only, watched videos and heard, from my peers who had been there more than I had, their feedback. And I went there and I was like, holy smokes, this is unlike anything else in the country. Just on your way to some of the hotels, seeing dolphins jumping and whales jumping and like just amazing, tapirs and all of the monkeys and all of the scarlet macaws. Like Manuel Antonio is great, but this is like Manuel Antonio times 500. So if you have the time and of course the budget, because the hotels there do tend to be a bit more pricey because they include the meals. They're not all inclusive because they don't normally include alcohol, but they do include the 3 meals a day and some of the on-site activities like kayaking or snorkeling and paddleboarding and things like that. But if you have the time and the budget to do it, you will not regret it.
Wow, there you go. See, I'm already sold. It's one of my favorite places in the country, and every time I listen to a summary, I'm like, okay, I need to go back quickly because it's incredible. I agree with everything you said. Thank you so much. Look at that, right on time. Jess, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time today. You've been super helpful. As mentioned, your information is in the description box below and on the side here for those watching live. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. We will have another webinar towards the end of March. So if you do have questions for us, get them ready. Make sure to subscribe to our social channels and follow along. And if you do have any questions for us, you can always let us know. You can reach out to Jess directly, Rebecca directly, if you need help planning your vacation. Jess, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time, guys, today.
No, thank you so much for having us.
Guys, take care. And as ever, hopefully see you next month. So for me, Adam Baker, Jess and Rebecca, hasta la próxima. See you guys soon.